I never thought a single email notification would silence my entire family. The sound still echoes in my memory, that sharp ping from my mother's phone, cutting through the carefully orchestrated pleasantries of our Christmas Eve dinner. The dining room had been transformed into something out of a magazine spread, all twinkling fairy lights and carefully arranged poinsettias, the scent of roasted turkey mingling with pine from the massive tree in the corner. Everything perfect, as always. Everything designed to showcase our family's success. My mother had always been meticulous about these gatherings. The china had to be the Wedgwood set, the silverware polished until it gleamed, the napkins folded into precise triangles. Every detail mattered when you were trying to maintain an image. And our image was built on a very specific foundation. Olivia was the golden child, the pride of the family, while I was just there. 23 years of being just there will teach you things about yourself, things like resilience, things like determination, things like the quiet satisfaction of proving everyone wrong when they're not even watching. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The dinner had been proceeding exactly as I'd expected. Olivia sat at my mother's right hand, radiant in a cream cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Her dark hair fell in perfect waves over her shoulders, and her makeup was flawless. Not too much, just enough to enhance what she'd been blessed with naturally. She'd always been beautiful, the kind of beautiful that made people turn and stare, that opened doors before she even had to knock. My mother, Catherine, held court at the head of the table, her blonde hair styled in that ageless way women of a certain class and income bracket seemed to perfect. She wore pearls, of course. She always wore pearls. They were her armor, her statement, her reminder to everyone that we were a family of substance and standing. My father, Michael, sat at the opposite end, methodically cutting his turkey into precise squares. He'd always been a man of few words, preferring to let his opinions show through nods, sighs, and meaningful glances. He'd perfected the art of communicating disappointment without saying a word. And then there was me, seated between my mother and Olivia, in what I'd come to think of as the invisible chair. I'd worn a simple black sweater and jeans. Not because I couldn't afford better, but because I'd learned years ago that dressing up only meant giving them more ammunition. Better to be overlooked than to be critiqued. "So, Olivia darling," my mother began, her voice warm in that way it only ever was when addressing my sister, "tell us more about the promotion. Director of Marketing at 28. That's absolutely extraordinary." Olivia smiled, but it was practiced. The kind of smile she'd been giving at these dinners for years. "It's not that extraordinary, Mother. I've been working toward it for 3 years. They simply recognized my contributions to the firm." "Simply?" My mother laughed, a tinkling sound that matched the crystal. "Darling, you're being far too modest. Michael, didn't I tell you she'd be running that company before she turned 30? My father nodded, allowing himself a rare smile. "You did, and you were right, as always." I took a sip of water, the ice clinking against the glass. This was familiar territory. I'd sat through hundreds of these conversations. Olivia's achievements dissected and celebrated, held up to the light like precious gems. Her grades in high school, her acceptance to Stanford, her scholarships, her internships, her job offers. Each success another brick in the pedestal they'd built for her. "What about you?" Olivia turned to me suddenly, and I felt everyone's attention shift like a spotlight swinging across a stage. "Still doing that? What was it? Computer thing?" The way she said, "computer thing," made it sound like I'd been playing video games in my parents' basement rather than building something real. But that was Olivia's gift. She could make you feel small without ever raising her voice, could dismiss your entire life's work with a casual inflection. "I'm running a tech company," I said quietly. "Educational software?" "Oh, right." She took a delicate sip of wine. "The startup, how's that going? Still in the garage phase?" My mother made a small sound. Not quite a laugh, but close enough. "Sweetheart, we've been meaning to talk to you about that. Your father and I think it might be time to consider something more stable. Olivia could probably get you an entry-level position at her firm. Couldn't you, darling?" "Absolutely," Olivia said, already moving on to her asparagus. "Administrative support is always in demand. You'd start at the bottom, of course, but it would be real work. Real income. Real work. as if everything I'd been doing for the past 5 years had been pretend. As if the 16-hour days, the sleepless nights, the endless coding and testing and revising had been nothing more than an extended childhood fantasy. I felt Zoe's words echo in my mind. My best friend, the one person who'd believed in me from the beginning. Don't let them make you small, she'd told me 1,000 times. Your worth isn't measured by their approval. I'm fine with what I'm doing, I said, keeping my voice level. The company's growing. We're sustainable. My father finally spoke, his voice carrying that particular tone of paternal concern that had always preceded his disappointments in me. Sustainable isn't successful. You're 23 now. It's time to stop playing around and think about your future seriously. This tech dream, it's nice to have hobbies, but you need stability, benefits, a retirement plan. Your father's right, my mother added, reaching for the wine bottle to refill Olivia's glass. We're not trying to discourage you, sweetheart. We just want you to be realistic about your limitations. Not everyone is cut out for entrepreneurship. There's no shame in that. Your limitations. The words hung in the air like smoke. This was the narrative they'd been writing about me since I was a child. The one where Olivia got all the natural gifts and I got… what? Consolation prizes? Participation trophies? I remembered being 7, bringing home a certificate for winning the school science fair. My mother had glanced at it briefly before returning her attention to Olivia's piano recital program. That's nice, dear, she'd said. Olivia, show everyone your solo piece again. It was magnificent. I remembered being 13, making the honor roll for the first time. My father had nodded absently while discussing Olivia's acceptance to a summer program at Yale. Good grades are important, he'd said, not quite looking at me. Keep it up. I remembered being 16, winning a coding competition that came with a scholarship. My mother had been too busy planning Olivia's high school graduation party to attend the ceremony. I'm sure it was lovely, she told me later. Did they take photos? Each memory was a small cut, insignificant on its own, but they added up over time. They formed a picture, created a story about who I was in this family and what my life was worth. And the story said, you are less than, you are other than, you are not enough, but stories can be rewritten. I appreciate your concern, I said, choosing each word carefully. But I'm happy with my choices. The company means something to me. Olivia laughed, not unkindly, but with that particular brand of pity that's almost worse than cruelty. Of course it means something to you, but meaning doesn't pay bills. Trust me, little sister, I've been in the professional world long enough to know that passion projects don't translate to real success. You need structure, hierarchy, proven models. This idea that you can just create something from nothing, it's sweet, really, but it's not how the world works. Olivia's giving you good advice, my mother said. She knows what she's talking about. She's built a real career, made real connections. Maybe you should listen to her more. Should. The word I'd heard more than any other in this house. You should be more like your sister. You should try harder. You should lower your expectations. You should accept reality. But whose reality? Theirs? The one where I was permanently cast as the understudy, the backup plan, the child who would never quite measure up no matter what I accomplished? I thought about telling them then. I thought about laying it all out, the user numbers, the revenue projections, the venture capital interest, the acquisition offers I'd already turned down, but something held me back. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was the desire to see them figure it out on their own. Or maybe it was just years of being invisible, making me want to stay in the shadows a little longer. You're awfully quiet, my father observed. Not sulking, I hope. We're only trying to help. I'm not sulking, I'm listening. Good, because at your age, Olivia was already established in her field. She'd made connections, built a reputation. You're running out of time to catch up. Catch up, as if life were a race and I were perpetually trailing behind, eating Olivia's dust. As if there were only one path to success and I'd somehow missed the starting line. My mother's phone sat on the table beside her plate, face up. I watched as the screen suddenly illuminated, a new email notification appearing. She glanced at it absently, then back to me. The point is, sweetheart, we love you. We want you to be happy. But happiness requires security, and security requires making smart choices. I have made smart choices. Have you? Olivia tilted her head, studying me like I was a particularly interesting specimen. Because from where I'm sitting, you're 23 with no stable income, no benefits, no clear career trajectory. You're playing with computers while the rest of the world moves forward. That's not smart. That's sad. Sad. The word hit harder than I expected. Not because it was true, but because it revealed so clearly what they thought of me. In their minds, I wasn't just unsuccessful, I was pitiable. Someone to be worried about, talked about in hushed tones, someone who needed saving from herself. My mother's phone lit up again with another notification. This time, she picked it up, frowning slightly. That's odd. I'm getting copied on emails to your father from the financial advisor. Something about portfolio adjustments and quarterly reports. She tapped the screen, opening the email. I watched her face change, the casual confidence draining away, replaced by confusion, then shock. Her mouth opened slightly, the wine glass frozen halfway to her lips. Catherine, my father noticed immediately. What is it? She didn't answer. She was scrolling now, her finger moving rapidly across the screen, her eyes growing wider with each swipe. The color had drained from her face. Mother? Olivia leaned forward, concerned now. Is something wrong? This. My mother's voice came out strangled, strange. This can't be right. Michael, our financial advisor, sent you a report about. She stopped, looked at me, then back at the phone. About a company we apparently invested in, through some trust structure I don't remember setting up. My father reached for his own phone, confusion evident on his face. I don't know what you're talking about. We haven't made any new investments recently. It's not a new investment. My mother's voice had gone very quiet. According to this, we've been invested for 5 years in a company called EduTech Solutions. The name hung in the air. I felt my heart rate pick up, but I kept my expression neutral, my hand steady on my water glass. Olivia frowned. I've heard of that company. They've been in the news lately. Something about explosive growth in the ed tech sector. She paused, realization dawning. Wait, isn't that? Your sister's company, my mother finished, her eyes locked on mine. The one we've been calling a hobby. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the fairy lights seemed to dim, the Christmas music from the other room fading into background static. My father had pulled up something on his own phone, his finger stabbing at the screen with increasing urgency. The quarterly report, my mother whispered, still staring at her phone. It says here that EduTech Solutions generated $120 million in revenue this fiscal year, with a profit margin of. She stopped, unable to continue. 38%, I said quietly. The final numbers came in last week. We exceeded projections by 12%. My father's head snapped up. You're telling me this? This company of yours is worth. The current valuation is approximately $450 million, I said. My voice steady despite the hammering of my heart. We're in talks with 3 major venture capital firms about Series B funding, but honestly, we're profitable enough that we don't need outside investment. We might go public in 2 years if the market conditions are right. Olivia's mouth had fallen open. That's not possible. You're 23. You were working retail 2 years ago. I was working retail while building the company, I corrected. I needed the health insurance and the steady paycheck while we were getting off the ground. I quit 18 months ago when we hit $10 million in revenue. My mother set down her phone carefully as if it might explode. Why didn't you tell us? The question was so absurd I almost laughed. Why didn't I tell them? Because every time I'd tried to talk about my work, they dismissed it. Because every time I'd shared my hopes, they'd called them delusions. Because I'd learned by the age of 10 that anything I valued would be devalued by them. So I'd stopped sharing the things that mattered most. I did tell you, I said instead. Multiple times. You called it a computer thing, a garage project, a phase I'd grow out of. My father was scrolling through something, probably news articles about EduTech Solutions, probably seeing my name attached to interviews and features I'd never mentioned at family dinners. This says you started the company at 18. I started developing the concept at 16, I said. Started formal incorporation at 18. Launched the first version at 19. It took 3 years to gain real traction, but yes, we've been operational for 5 years. 5 years, my mother repeated, her voice hollow. You've been running a company worth hundreds of millions of dollars for 5 years, and you never. She stopped, looked at Olivia, then back at me. We thought you were wasting your time. I know. We told you to get a real job. I know. We said you were being unrealistic, that you needed to be more like. She couldn't finish the sentence. More like Olivia, I completed for her. Yes, I heard that a lot. Olivia had gone very still, her perfect posture somehow even more rigid. How is this possible? You're not. She caught herself, but the words were already out there, hanging between us. I'm not what? I asked, my voice gentle but firm. Not smart enough, not capable enough, not enough like you? That's not what I meant. Isn't it? I set down my water glass, folded my hands on the table. For as long as I can remember, every achievement of mine has been measured against yours and found wanting. You got straight A's, I got mostly A's with a few B's. You went to Stanford, I went to community college because that's all we could afford after your tuition. You got the corner bedroom, I got the one over the garage. You got the car for your 16th birthday, I got a bus pass. That's not fair, my mother interjected. We treated you both the same. Did you? I looked at her directly, something I'd rarely done before. Did you really? Because I remember every birthday party that got overshadowed by Olivia's schedule. Every achievement that got a pat on the head while hers got a celebration. Every time I tried to share something I was proud of and got told it was nice before you went back to discussing Olivia's life. My father cleared his throat. We might have shown more attention to Olivia's accomplishments because they were more traditionally successful, but we never meant to make you feel less than, I offered, because that's how I felt, every day, for years. The fairy lights continued their cheerful twinkling, completely indifferent to the shattering happening at our perfect family dinner. I could smell the turkey going cold on our plates, could see the condensation forming on the crystal glasses. I don't understand, Olivia said, and for the first time I heard something vulnerable in her voice. Why didn't you say something? Why didn't you tell us it was actually working? When? I asked. When would have been the right time? When you called my work a computer thing? When Mom suggested I work as your administrative assistant? When Dad said I was living in a fantasy world? Would you have listened if I'd said, actually, my company just hit $10 million in revenue? Or would you have found another way to dismiss it? The silence was answer enough. I thought about all the times I'd sat at this table, invisible and silent, watching them celebrate Olivia's life while mine went unacknowledged. I thought about the nights I'd spent in my room over the garage, coding until my eyes burned, fueled by determination and spite in equal measure. I thought about Zoe, my best friend, the one person who'd believed in me from the start. You should see what people are saying about your company, my father said quietly, still scrolling through his phone. The reviews are incredible. Parents love it. Teachers are calling it revolutionary. There's an article here from EdTech magazine calling you one of the most innovative entrepreneurs under 30 in the industry. I know, I said. I did the interview last month. My mother had tears in her eyes now, though whether they were from shock or regret, I couldn't tell. All those times we told you to be realistic, you'd already done it. You'd already succeeded. I didn't do it for success, I said, and I meant it. I did it because I believed in the idea. Because I saw a problem in education. Kids falling through the cracks because one-size-fits-all teaching wasn't working. And I thought I could help solve it. The money is nice, don't get me wrong. But it was never about proving anything to you. Even as I said it, I knew it wasn't entirely true. Some part of me, some deep and wounded part, had absolutely been trying to prove them wrong. Had been collecting each milestone like ammunition for a battle I'd always known would come. Olivia had tears on her cheeks now, her perfect makeup finally cracking. I called you sad. I said your life was sad. Oh God. You believed what they told you? I said, and there was no anger in my voice anymore, just a bone-deep weariness. You believe the story about me being less than you because that's the only story they ever told. That's not fair, my mother said again, but her voice was weak. Maybe not, I acknowledged. Maybe you did the best you could with what you understood. But the fact remains that I spent 23 years being told I wasn't enough, that I needed to be more like Olivia, that my dreams were impractical and my efforts were cute but ultimately pointless. And I believed it for a long time. I internalized it. I thought maybe they were right, maybe I was delusional. But you kept going anyway, my father said. I kept going because of Zoe, because she saw something in me that you didn't, or wouldn't. She told me I was brilliant when you called me average. She celebrated my first 1,000 users when you didn't even ask how the company was doing. She believed in me when my own family couldn't be bothered. The words were harsh, but they needed to be said. I'd spent too many years swallowing them, letting them fester inside me, turning them inward until they became self-doubt instead of outward-directed truth. We're sorry, my mother whispered. We didn't know. You didn't want to know. I corrected gently. There's a difference. I tried to tell you. Multiple times. You just weren't interested in hearing it. My father set down his phone, his expression troubled. What do you want from us now? An apology? Recognition? What would make this right? It was a fair question, and I'd thought about the answer many times over the years. What did I want from them? Acknowledgement? Validation? Some grand gesture that would somehow erase 23 years of feeling invisible? I want you to see me, I said finally. Not as Olivia's little sister, not as the disappointment, not as the one who couldn't quite measure up. Just as me, as the person I actually am, not the person you decided I should be. We do see you, Olivia said, and her voice was thick with emotion. I see you now, and I'm so proud of you, and so ashamed of myself. I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and saw something I'd rarely seen before. Genuine emotion. Not the practiced smile, not the perfect persona, but real feeling. You were playing a role too, I said, understanding suddenly. The golden child, the perfect daughter. That couldn't have been easy either. She laughed, but it was bitter. No, it wasn't, but at least I got attention. At least they cared about my life, even if it meant living up to impossible standards. You got ignored. I'm not sure which is worse. They're both pretty terrible, I said, and despite everything, I smiled. My mother was crying openly now, mascara running down her carefully made-up face. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to make up for 23 years of being blind. You can't, I said honestly. You can't fix the past. But you can do better going forward. You can actually listen when I talk about my work. You can stop comparing me to Olivia. You can treat me like my achievements matter, like my life has value independent of how it measures up to anyone else's. We can do that, my father said firmly. We will do that. I swear to you, we'll do better. I wanted to believe him. Some part of me, the 7-year-old bringing home a science fair certificate, the 13-year-old making honor roll, the 16-year-old winning competitions. That part wanted to believe them desperately. But I'd learned to be cautious with my hope. Actions matter more than promises, I said. Show me that you mean it. Show me over time. But understand that I don't need your validation anymore. I spent 5 years building something meaningful without your support. I learned to find my worth somewhere other than your approval. That won't change overnight just because you've finally noticed what I've been doing. The dinner was ruined, of course. The turkey had gone cold. The carefully arranged plates forgotten. But something had shifted in the room. Something fundamental. The story they'd been telling about me, about our family, about who mattered and who didn't. That story had been shattered like the crystal glasses I'd imagined falling in my darker moments. Tell us about it, Olivia said suddenly. About the company, about how you built it, about everything we missed. Please. I hesitated, old habits of silence dying hard. But then I thought about Zoe, about her unwavering belief that I deserved to be heard. And I began to talk. I told them about the initial concept, developed in my junior year of high school when I'd tutored younger students and seen how traditional teaching methods failed kids with different learning styles. I told them about teaching myself to code, spending hours on free online courses, building the first clunky prototype on a laptop I'd bought with money from my part-time job. I told them about the rejection letters from investors who thought I was too young, too inexperienced, too unknown. About the nights I'd questioned everything, wondering if they'd been right all along, if I was being foolishly stubborn. About Zoe staying up with me, running user tests, helping me refine the interface, refusing to let me give up. I told them about our first 100 users, then our first 1,000, then the day we hit 10,000. And I'd really known, that we had something special. About hiring our first employees, about saying no to acquisition offers because I believed we could be something bigger, something better. I told them about the thank you letters from parents whose kids had been struggling in school until they found our app, about the teachers who'd reached out to collaborate, about the research partnerships with universities studying learning outcomes, about the scholarship program we'd started, providing free access to low-income students. And as I talked, I watched their faces change, saw the moment my father understood the complexity of what I'd built, saw my mother grasp the impact it was having, saw Olivia recognize that success could look different than she'd imagined. 120 million in revenue, my father said when I finished. And you're only 23. The revenue isn't the point, I said. The point is that we're helping people. The money is a byproduct of doing something meaningful. That's incredibly mature of you, my mother said. I almost laughed. Is it? Or is it just that I learned money couldn't buy the thing I actually wanted, which was for you to see me as valuable? I had to find other ways to measure my worth. The truth of it hung in the air between us. All the money in the world couldn't undo the years of feeling invisible. Success couldn't rewrite the past, but it could perhaps change the future. What happens now? Olivia asked. With the company, I mean. What's next? We're expanding internationally, I said, translating the app into 15 languages, building partnerships with school systems in developing countries. We want to democratize education, make quality learning accessible to kids everywhere, regardless of their circumstances. That's remarkable, my father said, and for once his approval didn't feel like everything. It felt like what it was, nice to have, but not necessary. It is remarkable, I agreed, and I'm proud of it. I'm proud of what we've built, what we're doing, where we're going. I'm proud of myself. The last statement hung in the air, radical in its simplicity. I'm proud of myself. Not seeking their pride, not waiting for their validation, just claiming my own sense of worth. My mother reached across the table, her hand hovering near mine but not quite touching. Can we start over, not forget what happened, but try to build something better going forward? I looked at her hand, at the careful manicure, the expensive rings, the trembling fingers. She looked older suddenly, less certain. The woman who'd always seemed so sure of everything now looked lost. We can try, I said carefully. But it has to be real. No more dismissing what matters to me. No more comparisons. No more making me feel like I have to apologize for existing. Deal, Olivia said quickly. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for every time I made you feel small. I was playing a role too, being the perfect daughter, and I didn't see how it was hurting you. But that's not an excuse. I should have been a better sister. You can be, I said. Starting now, we both can be better. Different than what we've been. My father cleared his throat. Your mother and I, we owe you an apology. A real one. Not just for tonight, but for years of not seeing you clearly. For favoring Olivia. For making you feel like you had to prove your worth when you should have known it was inherent. Thank you, I said, and meant it. It didn't fix everything. It didn't erase the hurt. But it was a beginning. The Christmas lights continued their cheerful twinkling. The turkey grew colder, and somewhere in the other room, the music shifted to a new song. We sat there in the wreckage of our perfect family dinner, and for the first time in my life, I felt like we were actually seeing each other, flaws and all. I should probably mention, I said after a moment, that Forbes is running a profile on me next month. They called it the Quiet Revolutionary. How one 23-year-old is changing education. You might want to read it. My mother laughed, and it sounded like relief. We'll get a subscription. And frame it, Olivia added. Put it on the mantle next to all my awards, where it should have been all along. I felt something loosen in my chest. Not forgiveness exactly, not yet, but maybe the beginning of it. Maybe the possibility of it. The turkey's cold, my father observed. Completely ruined, my mother agreed. Should we order pizza? Olivia suggested, and despite everything, the tears, the revelations, the 23 years of hurt, I laughed. We all did. It wasn't healing, not completely, but it was real. And real was better than perfect. We ordered pizza. We sat around that table for 3 more hours, talking in a way we never had before. They asked me questions, real questions, about my life, my work, my dreams. Olivia told me about the pressure she'd felt to be perfect, the anxiety that kept her up at night. My parents admitted to mistakes, to blind spots, to the ways they'd failed us both. It wasn't redemption, it wasn't even resolution. But it was honest. And honest was a start. When I finally left that night, driving home to my apartment in the city, I felt different. Lighter maybe, or perhaps just clearer. I'd spent so many years carrying the weight of their disapproval, letting it shape how I saw myself. But I'd also built something despite it, or perhaps because of it. I'd found my worth in work that mattered, in helping others, in proving to myself, not to them, that I was capable of more than they'd imagined. The email notification had changed everything and nothing. They knew now. They saw me now. But I'd already learned to see myself. That was the real victory. Not the revenue numbers or the valuation or the press coverage, but the quiet knowledge that I'd been right all along. About myself, about my capabilities, about my worth. I called Zoe when I got home, told her everything. She laughed and cried and told me she'd always known this day would come. How does it feel? She asked. To finally be seen? I thought about it, really thought about it. It feels good, I said honestly. But you know what feels better? Already knowing my worth before they did. They could have never figured it out, and I would still be okay. That's the real power. That's my girl, Zoe said, pride evident in her voice. So what's next? World domination? Maybe, I laughed. Or maybe just keep doing what I'm doing. Building something meaningful, helping people, living a life I'm proud of. Sounds perfect. And it did. Not perfect like my mother's dinner parties or Olivia's pressed clothes or my father's investment portfolio, but perfect in the way that real things are perfect. Messy and complicated and authentic. The report had shown them the numbers, but the numbers weren't the story. The story was a girl who'd been told she wasn't enough and decided to believe differently, who'd built something meaningful in the gaps of their attention, who'd learned that worth isn't granted by others but claimed for yourself. They'd called me sad, delusional, a dreamer. They'd been wrong, but in a way, I was grateful for their dismissal. It had taught me to find validation within myself, to build my life on foundations they couldn't shake. 120 million in revenue, 450 million valuation, international expansion, Forbes profiles. None of it meant as much as the moment I'd said, I'm proud of myself, and truly meant it. That was the victory. That was the triumph. Not proving them wrong, but proving myself right. And as I fell asleep that night, I didn't think about the shocked expressions around the dinner table, or the tears, or the apologies. I thought about the kids using our app, learning and growing. I thought about the team I'd built, the lives we were changing. I thought about tomorrow and the day after and all the days to come where I'd wake up knowing exactly who I was and what I was worth. They'd finally seen me. But I'd seen myself first, and that made all the difference.